she was overthinking it. She was worrying about how the pictures were gonna come out, and then I made a huge mistake.
So today we're talking about Marianne Faithfull in the news at the moment, obviously sadly passed away. You mentioned before we started shooting that it was quite similar to your shoot with Shane McGowan.
Yes, it was like Shane, but
Okay.
a different kind of Shane McGowan. It was actually both in Dublin as well, curiously enough.
Is that the only similarity?
No, so Shane clearly didn't really want to be photographed, and actually, in his own way, was quite vulnerable. But Marianne Faithfull, the vulnerability was there completely in every pore. She was living in this cottage on this aristocratic estate called Shell Cottage. And when I met her, she was really trying her best to give us what we wanted. She'd made us sandwiches, and we arrived to a lovely lunch that she'd laid out, and I thought this is going to be easy, and it ended up being far from easy. She was so vulnerable and so fragile that as soon as we started taking pictures, I could see how she was overthinking it. She was worrying about how the pictures were gonna come out, and then I made a huge mistake. My big mistake was that she asked me about my motivation as a photographer, and of course, she's been photographed by everybody: Gerard Mankiewicz, David Bailey, obviously, who'd photographed her probably better than I did when she was in her prime. And she asked me about my practice and how I approach things. And I said to her, this was such a stupid thing to do. I said to her, I want to get the definitive picture of you. And as I said it, I knew it was a stupid thing to say because the definitive pictures of her had already been taken all those years ago. And she was now a woman in her middle years and a vulnerable woman. It put too much pressure on her. That week was like a voyage back to the 60s. So looking at my diary, which we can sort of show, earlier on in the week, I was photographing Michael Caine. So you have Michael Caine, Marianne Faithfull, these iconic kind of bookends of the 60s, or not bookends, but both having been photographed by people like David Bailey brilliantly, better than I could have, because he got them at their prime.
Mm. I
And
wonder
so,
if people will think that about your work. If they
um,
photograph some people you might have photographed in their prime.
well, absolutely. I mean, my pictures of the people I took in the 90s, those people are still going.
Mm.
So good luck if you have to photograph Damon Albarn now, because I got him when he was beautiful and he was pretty.
He's still very pretty now,
Yeah,
but
he's a good looking man.
yeah, cool. And so you said after you made your mistake that her whole demeanor changed.
Yeah,
How so?
she just sort of said, I remember I was just panicking when she said it. She said, I can't do this. And she
What,
just left. Yeah,
straight away?
yeah, she just left me. So looking at the film, I was halfway through a roll of black and white, and you can see I've taken the camera home and it's still, half loaded, and I've used up the rest of the frames taking pictures of your mum. And the other roll, there's a couple of frames at the end. I've just taken a picture of a landscape or something.
Mm.
I've had to just waste them because she just basically brought the whole thing to an end abruptly. And I kind of like, on the one hand, I was quite pleased because I wanted to get back to my home life, which was at a really good place because, as I say, Polly had just been born. I just got married, and there's a sort of darkness about being with her because reading the article, she talks about the fact that she doesn't really like children.
Mm.
And in the piece, in fact, we've got the piece here. And what we used to have, this was for the Independent on Sunday. Back then, you couldn't really get a job if you were just starting out for the Times or the Observer. But the Independent on Sunday, they would use new photographers, and so you'd get great spreads as well. And alongside that, I've got this one. This is a picture of Ted Honderick, who's a philosopher, but an amazing spread. And then this was the guy that Charlie Parsons, who worked at Channel 4, but they use the pictures really well. And also, that's what we used to use in order to get jobs. you'd get laminates made, and you'd take them in your little portfolio case, and you go and show them to a picture editor. There's no websites or anything like that.
Yeah, laminates of the spreads.
Of the
Just
spreads.
see your pictures
Yeah.
actually in action
Yeah.
in a
Also,
business environment.
but also a laminate of the photographs. You
Okay.
could get a print made and then get that laminated as well.
Well, those look really good. I could imagine those framed on a wall. I know you recently made a kind of print of a contact sheet, which I thought looked really good.
That's true. Yeah, maybe we could sell them on the site. I did a.
We could do those a lot cheaper then as well, couldn't we?
There was a my famous picture of the Spice Girls, and somebody wanted, a famous actress wanted a contact sheet of it, and so
You're not allowed to say who the actress
probably
is. So.
well, she was in Poor Things.
Okay.
Don't say who it is. It's a bit indiscreet. I've been paid, so but she's a big Spice Girls fan.
Okay.
In fact, I'm a big fan of hers. She was in California.
You're still outing her. That's
I know. I'm not going to say who it is.
That's for sure. But yeah, no, those could be really good. So, how did that go down at the commissioner's office?
I mean, nobody wants to hear excuses. No one remembers the fact that she was difficult, and on the face of it, because I sort of reacted to the situation, and I didn't waste time taking pictures that weren't of any that weren't really there. I mean, I don't tend to release the shutter unless I see a good picture, because
especially on film, I can imagine.
Well, that's true, but also what can happen. Some photographers in the past, you take pictures in order to get into a rhythm, but the trouble is your subject thinks that you're doing the shoot, and therefore, if they suddenly stop, then you've got just a load of rubbish. So I don't. The pictures I took, I liked the pictures. I think they were okay.
So
I just didn't get much choice. So, but back then, what I used to do is I had a little dark room in my flat, and I would do lith prints. So I would use fiber-based paper, and I would print them, make these beautiful prints. And so I didn't actually show the picture editor the contact sheets or anything. I just present maybe 2 or 3 of my selection, and if they're happy, they'll run with those. And then it's better, because then only the pictures you like are getting used.
Yeah. So did they not even know that the shoot ended so abruptly?
I never waste an opportunity to make myself look heroic. So, if things go badly, like with Clarkson, the first thing I do is tell the picture editor things have gone really badly, and then it's nice to be able to say, but you'll be pleased to know I've brought home the bacon.
Cool. You say often that you have certain pictures in your mind when you photograph people. Did you have David Bailey's pictures of Michael Caine in your head, or
100%? I had, of course, it wasn't just me, it was the magazine. They wanted me to do the David Bailey thing. And for a start, the David Bailey picture, I think he's smoking a cigarette. So they don't really want you to tell him to be smoking a cigarette. And you're never going to beat that David Bailey picture, not because it's technically amazing, but it is pretty good. It's just because that was like those pictures of Damon I shot, that was at a different time.
Yeah.
And you can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear.
Yeah. Yeah. Someone commented about that phrase recently, actually.
What did they say?
They were surprised someone else said that phrase.
Yeah.
Like, I say that as well.
It's a very useful phrase, and one that often is applied to photography. Sometimes, you arrive at a location. I can't think of someone off the top of my head, but you arrive and the subject is incredible and charismatic and extraordinary. I think even like Nick Cave, although I remember when I photographed Nick Cave, we need to do a video on this, but someone else had done Nick Cave, and they'd gone all the way to Australia, and it was for a music magazine like Melody Maker, and they'd been told by the picture department and the features department, to get Nick Cave to wear one of those hats with corks on it.
Yeah.
And he'd just thrown the photographer out of his house. So he'd gone all the way to Australia and come back with nothing. And so this was a reshoot.
Why would you ask that straight away?
I know. Yeah. But also Nick Cave was more of a troubled and difficult individual, more bellicose back then. So when I got to photograph him, it was a reshoot, so I was treading very warily. And I photographed him in Brompton Oratory.
A reshoot?
Yeah, it was this reshoot.
So
because they got no pictures.
They threw that guy out and got a different photographer.
Yeah, so I got to photograph him in London. But what I was about to say was, sometimes you arrive and it's silk. I mean, Nick Cave is silk because he's an extraordinary individual, and it's just, just don't make any mistakes. Don't tell him to wear a cork hat, and you'll be okay.
Yeah, they're great pictures. We'll throw some of them up.
Yeah.
Cool. I think that's good.